There's a special ruthlessness to spending $3 million on a single party just to humiliate the woman who snubbed you, to forcing a daughter into loveless marriage so your divorce won't destroy your social standing, to bankrupting your cheating husband while becoming America's most powerful woman when you're born in Mobile, Alabama with a family fortune evaporating, when the Civil War sends you fleeing to France, when you return to New York with nothing but ambition and a face you describe as unfortunate, you learn that power must be seized, not inherited. Alva Erskine Smith spent 2 decades clawing her way from near poverty to the pinnacle of Gilded Age society, married the richest available man, built the most expensive mansion in America, and threw the most extravagant costume ball in history, all to force Caroline Schermerhorn Astor, the woman who decided who mattered in America, to finally acknowledge her existence. Then she divorced him in the biggest scandal of the century, married her daughter to a broke English duke for social insurance, took a second husband immediately, and spent her final years picketing the White House for women's suffrage, proving that sometimes revenge is a dish best served with champagne that costs $65,000 and a daughter's tears at the altar. In today's episode of Old Money Throne, we expose how a cotton merchant's daughter used a railroad fortune to destroy New York's social hierarchy, how she locked her daughter in a room until she agreed to marry for a title, how her divorce settlement of over $10 million made her independently wealthy while her ex-husband fled to France in humiliation, and how she transformed from society climber to suffragette leader, demonstrating that the women who break into exclusive clubs often burn them down from the inside. January 17, 1853, Mobile, Alabama. Alva Erskine Smith entered the world as daughter of Murray Forbes Smith, a cotton commission merchant whose fortune was respectable but not spectacular. Her mother Phoebe Ann Deshaw came from political lineage. Her father, Robert Deshaw, had served as U.S. representative. Her family descended from colonial Kentucky aristocracy. The Smith family enjoyed comfortable circumstances in antebellum Mobile, social position built on generations of Southern establishment, but the Civil War destroyed everything. As sectional tensions exploded, Murray Smith recognized that remaining in Alabama meant financial and physical danger. Around 1859, the Smith family fled north to New York City, abandoning their southern roots for northern refuge. The move saved them from immediate danger but cost them their social position in New York. They were nobody, just another family of southern refugees with diminishing resources. Murray Smith attempted to rebuild through cotton brokerage, but the war that displaced him also destroyed his business model. The cotton trade that had sustained his family collapsed. By the time Alva reached marriageable age, the family fortune had largely evaporated. She understood early that marriage represented survival, not romance. Alva attended school in New York, but her real education came from summers in Newport, Rhode Island, where America's richest families gathered. She observed how wealth translated into power, how the right marriage could transform nobody into somebody, how social position required strategic calculation rather than mere money. Her education continued in Europe, where the family traveled when they could afford it. In France particularly, Alva absorbed aristocratic aesthetics, architecture, furniture, fashion, the visual language of power. She returned to America with cultivated taste but empty bank accounts, a dangerous combination. She also returned with clear understanding of her limitations. Alva possessed sharp wit, formidable intelligence, and iron will. She did not possess conventional beauty. She later described herself as having an unfortunate face, understanding that charm and strategy would have to compensate for looks. 1874, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, the Greenbrier Resort hosted America's wealthiest families during summer season. Among the guests, William Kissam Vanderbilt, grandson of Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt, the richest American before John D. Rockefeller. William, called Willie K by friends, was 25. Rakish, cultured, more interested in yachts and horses than business, he possessed one trait that Alva desperately needed: access to hundreds of millions of dollars. Alva's old friend Consuelo Yaznaga del Valle made the introduction. Consuelo had already demonstrated the power of strategic marriage by wedding heir to the Duke of Manchester. She understood Alva's situation and Willie K's availability. The setup was deliberate. Willie K had options. Numerous American heiresses and European aristocrats pursued him, but Alva deployed advantages that beauty couldn't match: wit that made him laugh, intelligence that challenged him, confidence that intrigued him. She also moved fast. No time for extended courtship when your family's financial situation deteriorated daily. Within months, Willie K proposed. April 20, 1875, Calvary Church, New York City. William Kissam Vanderbilt married Alva Erskine Smith. Newspapers described it as love match. Insiders understood it as transaction. Alva secured financial stability and Vanderbilt connection. Willie K got intelligent wife who understood society's rules. The settlement was immediate and transformative. Alva's father, Murray Forbes Smith, had ruined his health worrying about his family's financial future. He attended the wedding despite failing health, thanked Alva for bringing him peace of mind, died 10 days later. Alva had saved her family from bankruptcy. Her mother and siblings would never worry about money again. But the price was marriage to man she didn't love, to man whose temperament completely opposed hers. Willie K was friendly, gentle, cultured, non-combative. He enjoyed yachts and European travel. He wanted quiet life, collecting art and racing horses. Alva was strong-willed, arrogant, opinionated, tyrannical. She wanted power and social dominance. They were catastrophically mismatched. 3 children arrived: Consuelo in 1877, named after Alva's friend who'd arranged the marriage; William Kissam Jr. in 1878, Harold Sterling in 1881. Motherhood didn't soften Alva. It sharpened her ambition. The Vanderbilts were richest family in America. Cornelius's $94 million fortune exceeded the U.S. Treasury, but money didn't guarantee social acceptance. Caroline Schermerhorn Astor had decided they were unsuitable. Mrs. Astor. She preferred being called simply that, as if no other Astor matter controlled New York society with absolute authority. Her ballroom held 400 guests comfortably, so she created the 400, the only people who mattered in America. Ward McAllister, her partner and self-appointed arbiter of taste, screened applicants for bloodline purity and acceptable behavior. They decided that Cornelius, Commodore Vanderbilt, railroad and shipping tycoon, was too crass, too ambitious, too self-made. The Commodore had famously told competitors, "I won't sue you, I'll ruin you." He'd built his empire through ruthless competition and shameless self-promotion. Mrs. Astor and McAllister considered him nouveau riche vulgarian. His descendants inherited the fortune, but also the stigma. Alva spent years being snubbed. Mrs. Astor refused to call on her, which meant Alva couldn't call on Mrs. Astor, which meant no invitation to Mrs. Astor's annual ball, which meant social exile. The insult burned deeper because Alva came from old Southern aristocracy. Her family descended from Kentucky politicians and colonial settlers. She had better bloodline than most of the 400, but she'd married railroad money instead of inheriting shipping fortunes. 1882, Willie K. commissioned architect Richard Morris Hunt to build mansion on Fifth Avenue. Hunt had studied at École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. First American to complete the program, he understood that architecture signaled power. The site, 665th Avenue, occupying entire block from 52nd to 52nd Street. The neighborhood was becoming Manhattan's most prestigious. Address: neighboring mansions belonged to Astors, Stewarts, other establishment families. Hunt designed Petit Chateau French Renaissance palace transported to New York. The inspiration was Chateau de Blois and Loire Valley, 3 stories of limestone and brick, medieval towers, Gothic details, Renaissance proportions. The interior exceeded even the exterior's opulence. 2-story ballroom copied from Francis I's Chateau at Blois, massive staircase, carved wood paneling, stained glass, paintings, sculptures, every surface decorated. Hunt filled the house with European antiques, furniture that had belonged to kings, tapestries from French chateaux. The aesthetic announced that Vanderbilts possessed not just money but culture. Construction cost: $3 million, $70 million in today's currency. For comparison, President of the United States earned $50,000 annually. But Alva wasn't building house, she was building weapon. The mansion's completion in early 1883 triggered her revenge against Mrs. Astor. She would throw housewarming party, costume ball, the most elaborate entertainment New York had ever witnessed, and she would exclude the Astors. Alva deployed the press brilliantly. She invited journalists to preview the mansion before the ball. They wrote breathless descriptions of the decorations, the planning, the anticipated costumes. Newspapers published daily updates. Society columns obsessed over who received invitations, who didn't. The publicity built anticipation to fever pitch. 1,200 guests invited, entire ballroom filled, plus additional rooms. Guests assigned to specific quadrilles, coordinated dance performances requiring weeks of practice. Mrs. Astor's daughter Carrie desperately wanted to attend. She'd been practicing quadrille with her friends for months. They'd received their invitations. Hers never came. Caroline Astor Drayton, called Carrie, was 18. Prime marriageable age. Exclusion from the social event of the decade meant humiliation. She begged her mother to intervene. Mrs. Astor faced impossible choice: maintain pride and let daughter suffer embarrassment, or capitulate to woman she'd spent years snubbing. Alva's excuse when asked: "I had no address to send Mrs. Astor's invitation to, as she had never called on me at Petit Chateau." Technically correct, devastatingly manipulative. Social protocol required established society members to call on newcomers first. Mrs. Astor had deliberately never called. Now that refusal trapped her. To secure her daughter's invitation, Mrs. Astor had to leave her visiting card at 665th Avenue. The act represented formal acknowledgement of Alva's social standing. Surrender. The next day, Alva sent the Astors their invitation. Victory was complete before the ball even began. March 26, 1883, 10 o'clock evening, carriages began arriving at Petit Chateau. Police held back crowds of thousands who gathered to glimpse the spectacle. Guests emerged in costumes that cost fortunes. each outfit historically accurate, designed by best dressmakers in Paris and New York. Some costumes required months to create. Alva dressed as Venetian princess from painting by Alexandre Cabanel, underskirt of white and yellow brocade shading from deep orange to lightest canary, figures of flowers and leaves outlined in gold and iridescent beads, light blue satin train embroidered in gold and lined with Roman red. Her velvet tiara featured peacock's string of pearls that had belonged to Catherine the Great stretched across her waist. The costume cost tens of thousands, but Alva's sister-in-law, Alice Claypool Vanderbilt, wife of Cornelius Vanderbilt's 2-0, outdid everyone. Her electric light costume, designed by Charles Frederick Worth, featured white satin evening dress studded with glass beads and lightning bolt pattern. She held battery-powered torch that actually lit up. Technological marvel and fashion statement combined, resembling Statue of Liberty aflame, the costume caused sensation. Other guests came as King Lear, Joan of Arc, Louis XVI, Mary Queen of Scots, hornets, cats. One guest wore dress made from 17 real cat tails with taxidermied white cat as hat. The excess was deliberately overwhelming. Bougainvillea and orchids creating jungle atmosphere. Every room themed differently, each space more elaborate than the last. At 2 a.m, Delmonico's chef served dinner, working with Vanderbilt's army of servants. Champagne cost $65,000 alone, flowers $11,000. Costumes $156,000, total cost $250,000, $6 million in today's money, roughly equal to annual salary of President times 5. Dancing continued until sunrise. Alva led Final Virginia Reel at dawn. Men in powdered wigs stumbled down Fifth Avenue as children walked to school. Fantasy colliding with reality. The New York Times devoted pages to descriptions, every costume detailed, every guest listed, every moment dissected. Circulation soared. The New York Sun published stern criticism, while the wretched inmates of the tenements were huddled together like cattle to keep from freezing. The Vanderbilts were spending $250,000 on a single night's amusement. But the criticism only amplified the publicity. Mrs. Astor admitted defeat shortly after. "We have no right to exclude those whom this great country has brought forward. The time has come for the Vanderbilts." The gatekeepers had been forced to open the gates. Alva had won. She'd crashed the 400, using simple weapons, money, strategy, manipulation. Mrs. Astor's own social rules turned against her, but the victory triggered consequences Alva couldn't have anticipated. Within weeks, other Vanderbilts began planning their own mansions. The competition for architectural supremacy began. William Henry Vanderbilt, Willie Kay's father, immediately commissioned Hunt to design even larger mansion. Cornelius Vanderbilt Nye decided he needed Summer Cottage. In Newport, the architectural arms race that would eventually bankrupt the family had begun. Alva's party didn't just crash society, it established template for destructive spending. Yet for Alva personally, the triumph was complete. She was inside the 400, she'd become social leader, she'd out-astored Mrs. Astor. Unable to get opera box at Academy of Music, whose directors excluded newly wealthy families, Alva helped found Metropolitan Opera in 1883. When establishment excludes you, build your own establishment. 1886, Willie Key inherited $65 million from his father. William Henry Vanderbilt's estate, $130 million split among multiple children. The inheritance made Willie Kay independently wealthy beyond measure. Alva immediately wanted yacht. Willie Kay commissioned Alva from Harlan and Hollingsworth of Wilmington, cost $500,000. JP Morgan's yacht Corsair measured 165 feet, Mrs. Astor's Nirmahal 233 feet, William Henry Vanderbilt's North Star 270 feet. Alva demanded largest private yacht in world, 285 feet long, named after herself. The vessel represented floating palace for Caribbean and European tours. But Alva wanted more. She wanted Summer Cottage in Newport, Rhode Island, where America's wealthiest families summered. Newport had been relaxed summer colony of wooden houses. Alva intended to transform it into showcase of stone palaces. She commissioned Hunt again for Marble House, built 1888 to 1892 as Willie Kay's 39th birthday present to his wife. Cost $11 million. The name was literal. 500,000 cubic feet of marble, more marble than any private American residence, shipped from Greece, Italy, Africa. Neoclassical design inspired by Petit Trianon at Versailles. Gold ballroom's walls covered in gold leaf. Alva's bedroom styled after chamber at Versailles. Willie Kay's bedroom separate and modest. The house required 36 servants, butlers, maids, coachmen, footmen, armies of staff to maintain palace used weeks per year. Location was strategic. Built next door to Mrs. Astor's much simpler Beechwood estate. Architectural middle finger reminding Caroline Astor Daly, who'd won their war. By late 1888, Alva had everything. Richest husband in America, most expensive Manhattan mansion, largest yacht in world, most opulent Newport cottage, social dominance she'd schemed for, but underneath the marble and gold, her marriage was disintegrating. Willie K. was fundamentally decent man who wanted quiet life. Alva was relentless force who required constant conquest. He loved yachts and horses, she loved power and attention. Worse, Willie K. was blatant philanderer. He kept long-term mistress Nellie Neustretter, woman described as notorious in Europe. He flaunted the relationship publicly. Most society wives tolerated infidelity, expected behavior among wealthy men. Alva considered it intolerable insult when she confronted Willie K. about Nellie. He reportedly didn't bother denying it. The casual disrespect enraged her more than the affair itself. Some claimed Willie K. was so desperate to escape the marriage he'd hired women to pretend to be his mistress, making divorce inevitable either way. The marriage was dead. Alva had one problem. Divorce in 1890s destroyed women socially. The Sunday after divorce announcement, women at church would cut her, pretending she didn't exist. Her invitations to society events would dry up. Mrs. Astor would reclaim dominance. Everything Alva had built would collapse. She needed insurance, social protection that divorce couldn't destroy. She found it through her daughter Consuelo. Consuelo Vanderbilt, born 1877, grew into extraordinary beauty, tall, slim, with famously long neck that painters loved, Gibson girl ideal. But her childhood was nightmare of discipline. Alva forced her to wear steel back brace to maintain perfect posture, whipped her for slouching. Consuelo wasn't allowed personal possessions in her room. Alva created perfect setting where daughter became ornament rather than person. My person was dedicated to whatever final disposal she had in mind. Consuelo later wrote, understanding early that mother viewed her as asset to be invested. By 18, Consuelo was in love with Winthrop Rutherford, handsome American from old New York family, member of Ward McAllister's 400. It would have been excellent match, respectable lineage, appropriate wealth, but Alva had different plans. Consuelo would marry English aristocrat. Alva's friend Consuelo Yaznaga had married into Duke of Manchester's family, demonstrating that American money could purchase British titles. In 1894, Charles Spencer Churchill became 9th Duke of Marlborough at age 23, inheriting Blenheim Palace and crushing debts. Blenheim Palace, birthplace of Winston Churchill, required hundreds of thousands annually in maintenance. The Duke needed money desperately. Alva needed Duchess daughter desperately. Summer 1895. The Duke visited Newport. Alva arranged introduction. Charles was 23, Consuelo 18. Neither wanted this marriage. Consuelo loved Winthrop Rutherford. Charles loved another woman, Gladys Marie Deacon, but financial necessity and maternal tyranny overruled affection. When Consuelo resisted, Alva escalated. She threatened to have Winthrop Rutherford murdered, then claimed Consuelo's disobedience was killing her. I have suffered so terribly I shall die if you don't marry the Duke, Alva reportedly told her daughter, faking illness. Consuelo attempted to elope with Winthrop, but Alva caught her, locked her in her bedroom, posted footmen at the door. No one, not even governess, permitted entry. For days, Consuelo remained imprisoned. Alva finally told her daughter she would die unless Consuelo agreed, only then did Consuelo capitulate. The moment she agreed, Alva made miraculous recovery. November 6, 1895, St. Thomas Church, 5th Avenue, New York City, 2,000 guests invited. Over 200 carriages lined the streets. Police held back massive crowds. Everyone wanted a glimpse of wedding of the century, American railroad princess marrying English duke. Inside the church, floral decorations exceeded anything seen before in America. Walls, pillars, pews covered in flowers cost tens of thousands. Consuelo's trousseau cost £10,000, 75 gowns, each with 2 pairs of matching stockings. Ordered from Paris, the marriage settlement. Duke received 50,000 shares of Beech Creek Railroad stock, valued at $2.5 million, annual guaranteed income of $100,000 for life. Consuelo would receive $100,000 annually during her father's lifetime. After his death, $2.5 million would go to trustees for her use. Willie K. also agreed to spend $2.5 million purchasing land and building Sunderland House, palatial London townhouse for the couple. Total financial package, over $8 million, approximately $120 million today. Consuelo was being purchased for her father's railroad money. On the morning of the wedding, Consuelo spent hours crying alone in her room. I spent the morning of my wedding day in tears and alone. No one came near me, she later wrote. The wedding started 20 minutes late because Consuelo's eyes had swollen so badly from crying that she couldn't see properly. She needed time to compose herself enough to walk. She wore a white satin princess gown with 5-meter train, veil that thankfully covered her red swollen eyes. As she walked down aisle with her father, tears streamed down her face, newspapers noted. Bride appeared distraught. Guests whispered about the crying, but ceremony proceeded. After vows were exchanged in vestry, marriage contract was signed, formal completion of transaction, American money for English title. During honeymoon, Duke reportedly told Consuelo he'd given up the English woman. He loved to collect $2.5 million in railroad stock. I despised anything that was not British, he informed his American wife. The marriage was disaster from first night. Loveless transaction that made both parties miserable. But Alva had achieved her goal. Daughter was Duchess of Marlborough, highest-ranking American woman in British aristocracy, March 1895, 2 months before forcing Consuelo into marriage. Alva filed for divorce from Willie K. grounds adultery with Duchess of Manchester and others. The timing was strategic. Secure daughter's aristocratic marriage first, then divorce. Duchess' daughter provided social insurance against scandal. The divorce shocked New York society. Women of Alva's position simply didn't divorce. No matter how flagrant husband's infidelity, the settlement shocked more, over $10 million to Alva, several million more than. Initial estimates, she retained custody of all 3 children, right to remarry, and kept Marble House outright. Willie K. also gave her Fifth Avenue mansion, property on Long Island, an annual income of hundreds of thousands. Alva had not just escaped the marriage, she profited spectacularly. The divorce decree granted everything Alva demanded. Willie K. essentially paid fortune to be free of her. He immediately moved to France, built chateau near Deauville, established horse racing stable and breeding farm. Spent rest of life in Europe avoiding America and memories of Alva. In 1903, he remarried to Anne Harriman, widow of sportsman Samuel Stephen Sands Shore. They had no children. He lived quietly raising horses until his death in 1920, but on Sunday, March 24, 1895, week after divorce announcement, Alva attended church at Marble House. Every woman in the building cut her, pretending she didn't exist. Invitations to major social events dried up. Mrs. Astor and her circle closed ranks. Divorced women didn't belong in respectable society. Alva had anticipated this. Her insurance policy was about to pay off. January 11, 1896, less than 10 months after divorce, Alva married Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont. Oliver was one of Willie K.'s old friends, son of August Belmont, who represented Rothschild banking family interests in America. Oliver shared Willie K.'s passion for yachting and horse racing, but unlike Willie K., he appreciated Alva's strength rather than resenting it. The remarriage so quickly after divorce was scandalous, but Alva didn't care. She had $10 million, Marble House, Duchess daughter, and new husband who suited her better. Oliver owned Belcourt, 60-room Newport mansion next door to Marble House, entire first floor dedicated to carriage space and stables for his prize horses. Alva immediately began extensive renovations to Belcourt. She needed project, needed conquest, needed to prove divorce hadn't diminished her. Gradually, society accepted her back. Having Duchess daughter helped enormously. Mrs. Astor couldn't exclude. Mother of Duchess of Marlborough, Consuelo's marriage, miserable as it was, served its purpose, protecting Alva's social position during divorce scandal. 1908, Oliver Belmont died from infection after a appendectomy. He was 55, Alva was 55, widowed and independently wealthy. Alva faced question that haunted her since childhood. What did she want power for? She'd spent 30 years acquiring wealth, building mansions, dominating society, forcing her way into rooms that excluded her, and for what, at 55, with fortune secured and social position unassailable, Alva experienced transformation. 1909, she attended suffrage meeting in New York, joined National American Women's Suffrage Association, found purpose beyond palaces. Women couldn't vote, couldn't control property in many states, couldn't divorce easily, couldn't escape bad marriages without financial ruin. Alva had experienced these limitations personally. Forced to marry for money because women couldn't earn, trapped in bad marriage because divorce meant social death. Her wealth had eventually freed her, but most women had no such escape. She founded Political Equality Association to support suffrage. Supporting politicians, wrote articles for newspapers, used her fortune to fund movement. In 1912, she led division of New York City's Women's Votes Parade, thousands marching for voting rights, Alva at the front. The woman who'd thrown $3 million party to crash exclusive club now marched, demanding rights for all women. The transformation was genuine. 1913, Alva joined Alice Paul and militant wing of suffrage movement. These women didn't ask politely for rights, they demanded. In 1916, Alva co-founded National Woman's Party, immediately began aggressive tactics. January 1917, she organized first ever picketing of White House. Women stood outside President Wilson's residence with signs demanding votes. The picketers were arrested, sent to prison, force-fed when they went on hunger strike. Alva used her wealth to bail them out, hire lawyers, fund their defense. Her Marble House became suffrage headquarters. She held conferences there, fundraising parties, strategy sessions. The palace built to dominate society now served movement for equality. In 1918, she worked with English suffragette Christabel Pankhurst, brought her to America for speaking tour, opened her houses and purse to movement. With Elsa Maxwell, she wrote Melinda and Her Sisters, suffragist operetta, staged it at Waldorf Astoria Hotel in 1916. The 19th Amendment passed 1920. Women finally won right to vote. Alva had been instrumental in achieving it, but she didn't stop. She moved to France in 1921, bought home on French Riviera, continued activism for international women's rights. She campaigned to ensure women had same citizenship rights as men. The issue became personal. Her daughter Consuelo had lost dual citizenship by marrying English Duke in 1922. National Women's Party issued Declaration of Principles: equal education, equal employment, equal pay, equality before law. The Declaration also demanded women's right to control her own body, control her property, right to divorce, right to custody of children. In 1929, Nupi purchased home in Washington, D.C. for headquarters. Alva funded much of it. January 26, 1933, Alva died in Paris, age 80. Her body returned to New York, buried next to Oliver Belmont at Woodlawn Cemetery. Months later, Pan American Conference in Montevideo signed Equal Nationality Treaty. May 24, 1934, President Franklin Roosevelt signed Equal Nationality Act confirming marriage had no impact on citizenship. Alva's final cause had succeeded. April 12, 2016, President Barack Obama established Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument in Washington, D.C., named for Alva Belmont and Alice Paul, official recognition that society climber who threw $6 million. Theory? Dollar Party eventually became civil rights leader. Her daughter Consuelo finally escaped her marriage, separated from Duke in 1906, formally divorced 1921, marriage annulled by Vatican 1926 for annulment. Alva testified, "I forced my daughter to marry the Duke. I have always had absolute power over my daughter," admitting coercion. Consuelo married Jacques Balsan, French aviator she'd met at her Paris coming out ball. A marriage of love, she called it. They remained happily together until his death 1956. Consuelo died 1964. Age 87, she'd outlived mother by 31 years. Finally experienced happiness, Alva's ambition had nearly destroyed. William K. Vanderbilt died 1920, age 70, in France, racing horses, living quietly, never remarried after Anne Harriman. His estate totaled $48 million, substantial but less than inheritance he'd received, spent on yachts, horses, maintaining European Chateau, Petit Chateau on Fifth Avenue, scene of legendary ball, demolished 1926, replaced by commercial building, no marker indicates where it stood. Marble House survives as museum in Newport. Tourists pay admission to see Alva's monument to ambition, gold. Ballroom still gleams. The red velvet ropes keep visitors from sitting in Alva's chair, from touching her marble, from understanding woman who built palace just to win social war. What should we make of Alva Vanderbilt Belmont, woman who married for money, crashed society through manipulation, forced daughter into loveless marriage, then became suffragette leader? The contradictions don't resolve neatly. She fought for women's rights while destroying her daughter's happiness. She demanded equality while exploiting her wealth's advantages. But perhaps that's precisely why her story matters. Alva wasn't consistent saint or pure villain. She was ambitious woman navigating system designed to limit her. She used every weapon available: marriage, money, architecture, social manipulation, her daughter's misery, and eventually political activism. The $3 million ball that crashed the 400 didn't just change New York society, it demonstrated that power could be purchased and performed. Mrs. Astor's era of old money gatekeeping ended that night. New era of competitive spending began. The Gilded Age reached its peak excess, but Alva's final transformation suggests that conquest without purpose becomes hollow. Palaces without meaning become prisons. At 55, she discovered that real power wasn't forcing Mrs. Astor to acknowledge her. It was changing laws that trapped all women. The suffragette leader emerged from the society climber, the civil rights activist from the social manipulator, the monument to women's equality from the woman who sold her daughter for title. Alva Vanderbilt Belmont died having achieved everything she'd sought in youth: wealth, social dominance, power, then spent her final decades fighting to ensure other women wouldn't need to marry for survival. From mobile refugee to Mrs. Vanderbilt to social destroyer to suffragette leader, one woman's ruthless ambition accidentally advanced women's rights, proving that sometimes the most effective revolutionaries are those who first mastered the system they eventually burned down. And now we want to hear from you in the comments. Had you heard of Alva Vanderbilt before this video? Do you think her suffrage work redeems forcing Consuelo into marriage? Or are the two parts of her life impossible to reconcile? We look forward to your thoughts below. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Throne.